Hello. So in this screencast, we're going to build on the previous example, which we had passed. So basically, the app was very simple. You had a red view controller where you could type in something here. So for example, you could say Bob, and then you click on the next view controller, and it passes whatever you typed, whatever string you typed, into the yellow view controller and displays it. And then there was the close and so on. So we used the prepare for Segue in the initial view controller, right? The red view controller, we used the prepare for Segue to identify the Segue by ID. Basically, as a reminder, if we go back to the storyboard, you could see that the Segue itself, we specified an identifier for the Segue, this Segue. We specified an identifier for it, and the identifier was this string. Now, if we go back to the code, we use the same string to say segue.identifier in the prepare for Segue. Now, notice something in this app that we will transition even if it's empty. So basically, if the user didn't enter anything and clicked on here, we still transition. So what if we want to avoid the transition from happening if the user didn't enter any text? So can we do this in prepare for Segue? The problem is in prepare for Segue, the Segue is going to happen. And this is the last step before the Segue is going to happen. But this is a step before the Segue happening. This is the prepare for Segue. So you cannot avoid the Segue from happening. It's too late. There is another one where there is another function that we can override. It's called should perform Segue. See, and should perform Segue returns a Boolean. And basically, if the Boolean is true, then the Segue should happen. If the Boolean is false, then this Segue should not happen. Okay? So basically, it's just this is the function that decides if a Segue is going to happen or no. So basically, if I go in and just return false, then this means that all these Segues are never going to happen. So basically, irrespective of whatever Segue false, if I do that, then these Segues are never going to happen. Okay? Any Segues that are trying to happen in this view controller are not going to happen. So let's see. So even if I type a name here, say Bob, and I click here, boom, the Segue is not happening. Why? Because I'm just explicitly returning false. So basically what I need to do is to be able to identify which Segue I'm working with. So the same story, I would say if Segue, you see there is a Segue parameter that comes in here. Actually, no, it gives you only the identifier of the Segue that's coming in. So that's the identifier of the Segue. Excellent. So I could say if the identifier is equal to the identifier of the Segue that I'm interested in, right? Okay, so now basically I will do that. And then here, I need to check to see if the label that the user entered or the text field that the user entered is not empty. So if and self dot name text field dot text is equal to this, right? Then there is a problem here, else is equal to this. So basically, if it's equal to this, if it's equal to empty, then I will just say return false. I'm not going to transition. Else return true. Cool. So basically, and then here by default, I'll just transition. So basically, if it's the Segue that I'm interested in, right? If you don't enter any text, this means the text is empty, then I will decide that this Segue should not happen. Otherwise, this Segue should happen. I could have an alert dialog here to tell the user, hey, by the way, you need to do, like, for example, I could have the code that would, I could create an alert dialog and display an alert dialog as alert dialog equal new UI alert controller, and it has a title. I'll say error, please enter a name or something. Please enter a name, and then the style is probably I'm going to use the alert style dot alert, and then basically I'll have one action, right? So basically alert dot add action, and then I'll just add UI alert action. Okay, and the UI alert action has a title and The title is going to be okay, and then the style for it is going to be the default style, and the handler is when somebody basically clicks the event. It clicks OK, I can do something, but usually in here I don't need the handler, because I'm basically not going to do anything when the user clicks OK. This is just to alert the user, right? And then I'll just show the alert. So basically I'll show the alert by just self.present. I'm expecting here self.present self.present, and then the view controller that I'm presenting is the alert. Animated is say true, and then the completion handler is nil, right? All right, so now we're on this. So basically, just to go back to what we were trying to do, this is true, sorry, true. Basically, we are looking at should perform segue. That function, it decides if you should perform the segue or no, right? So basically, it's empty now. There is nothing here. I'll click on here, and it shows error. Why? Because whenever you are trying to perform the segue, before prepare for segue, should perform segue gets called, and then should perform segue. If it returns true, the segue happens. If it returns false, the segue doesn't happen. So basically, we are returning false when it's empty. Now let's try to enter something and see what happens. So we go back here, enter Bob, and you click on go to next, and actually the segue happens. So basically we have discussed how you can control if a specific segue could happen or no, and that's basically by using should perform segue. And we also looked at prepare for segue in the previous video. So I hope this was helpful. Please let us know if you have any questions. Thank you.